Hello again, guys. So, Unit 8 Language and Learning. In this unit, remember, in terms of grammar, we are analyzing and checking some words that can help us express ability and skills and different aspects or things that we can do. So we know that to express ability in English, the typical word that we use is can. Can is a modal verb, and a modal verb helps us expresses to express an idea. In this case, can is for ability. So we're just trying to remember that part. You have practiced this before. So we use can to talk about things that you are able or you have the ability to do. Some people can sing very well, others can't sing a note. Some people can speak different languages, some others can't speak more than one language. We have an example there. The example says, my husband can make very good spaghetti. Right? Can. Now, to express ability in the past, we use could. So when we talk about ability in the past, we use could. Could is the past of can. So I could ride a bike when I was 6. How about you? I couldn't ride one until I was 14. I could play the guitar when I was a kid. Now I can't. I could travel a lot before COVID. Now I can't. Right? I could to express ability in the past. Okay, now what about the future? What about expressing ability in the future? We need another expression. Can is just for present. Could is just for past. We cannot say I will can. That's impossible, right? So will expresses future, but can only exists in the present. So we need another expression for that. And that expression is able to. So to talk about ability in other tenses, especially the future, we use able to. So for example, I'm sorry, I won't be able to go to your party. Right? So we use the future will or won't, be able to, and then the action. Another example could be I will be able to pass my exam. I will have the ability to pass my exam. So I will be able to pass my exam. I will be able to speak English very well when I finish this course. I will be able to learn more about online classes. I will be able to. That's the one that we use to talk about ability for the future. That's exactly what you have been practicing in your book for the first part of the lesson. Now, for the second part of the lesson, there are other words that can help us express more ideas, not just ability. So we can express, for example, permission. We can give suggestions. We can talk about obligation or something that is really important with other words. Let's check that, okay? But first, let's do an activity so we can also check that. I have more examples here for will be able to. If you want, you can pause the video to check those examples, but all of them represent that we use be able to express ability in the future, right? I will be able to arrive on time at your party tomorrow. She won't be able to speak properly if she doesn't practice. Will you be able to pass your driving exam tomorrow? Yes, I will. So those are some more examples for will be able to. If you would like to analyze them, I suggest you pause But if you feel that you understand how we create ability for the future, we can continue. Okay, so I need your help. I have a list of problems there, and I have another list for advice. You know that advice is suggestions, right? So pause the video, take your time, read the problems, and try to match the problems with a possible suggestion. Try to do it. Pause the video, read, and try to match. And then we will analyze how we're doing this. Okay, so the first problem, my ex-boyfriend is going to my best friend's wedding. It was horrible to me. Should I go? What is the correct suggestion or the most appropriate one? Probably B, right? Of course, you should, but look happy and wear a fantastic dress. That's a possible suggestion. What about number 2? It says there's a group of bullies at school. They're making my life miserable. What is the correct suggestion? Probably D, right? You must tell your parents and your head teacher about this. Yeah, totally. Number 3, I've fallen in love with my boss. Should I tell him? What do you think? Of course you should. No, right? A, no, you shouldn't. It will only cause problems at work most of the time. That's the result. And number 4, I'm 16. I chat to a boy on the internet. He wants to meet me. Should I go? C, right? I don't think you should. You have no idea what he's really like. Look at the suggestions that we are giving. When we give suggestions, we know that the typical word we use to give suggestions is should, right? You should or you shouldn't. Check the pronunciation. The L is silent. So we say should, should. You should or you shouldn't. So we use should to give advice. But there is one example of advice there that is not just an advice, but it's something that is really important. We're using a different word, and it's not should. Have you noticed? What is that word? It's in letter D. We're using the word must. So must, we use must when something is extremely important or necessary, almost like an obligation. So we can make a distinction when we give advice of something that is optional. If I give you an advice, you can decide what to do, right? So what dress is better? Well, you should buy the red one because it's better. Oh, but I like the black one. Okay, so it's just a suggestion. You decide. But with must, we are expressing that something is really important or necessary. So you should really do it, right? So probably there is no other option. That is the case for the bullying problem in number 2, which the correct answer is D. Now, take a look at this activity. It says complete the sentences with must or should. You can do it just thinking. You don't need to write. But when you're driving, you should or you must stop at red lights. What do you think? It's like should, like you decide, or it's something that it's necessary, like an obligation, like a rule. Must, right? You must stop at red lights. Like if you don't do it, you can get in trouble with the police, right? So number 2, you should be kind to other drivers or you must be kind to other drivers. What do you think? Probably should, right? I mean, you are going to decide how to behave in the end. We know that many people are not kind. they are rude. They say bad words and they get angry when they are driving, but it's their problem, right? So you should. It's not a rule. You don't go to jail if you get angry when you are driving. Number 3, you should wear a seatbelt or you must wear a seatbelt. That's easy, right? You must. It's a rule. Number 4, on a long journey, you must have a rest from time to time or you should have a rest from time to time. I think probably should, right? It depends on the person. If you feel that you can drive long hours, it's great. But in the end, you decide. There is no rule that you should stop and rest. But it's a very good suggestion. And in number 5, in Britain, you must drive on the left or you should drive on the left. If you know a little bit of history or culture, you know that in Britain, all cars have the guide on the opposite. So you must drive on the left. It's completely different from here. So think about it. Must, rules, should. It's basically a suggestion. So we have more words that we can use to express permission, ability, obligation, and many others. I have a chart or a table here that can help you identify the verb. What is the idea that the verb expresses? And you have some examples there that you can check. So we know can, could, and be able to are for ability. You have some examples there. We also use can for permission. Remember that can indicates permission. So you can open the book during the exam. The teacher can give you the permission to open your book during the exam. Now, must, mustn't, and can't, they are expressing obligation by our rule. Remember that must or the negative mustn't expresses rules or something that is extremely important. And can't, obviously something that it's like not, you don't have the permission. So it's an obligation. So, for example, in our school, you must have a minimum of 6 to pass. So 6 is the minimum to pass. Teachers mustn't use the time of older teachers, especially now that we connect to Zoom. So we have special hours for class. So teachers mustn't use the time of older teachers. And people can't get services without a face mask. Because of COVID, if you go to a cafeteria or a restaurant, you need to wear the face mask. It's important. It's not a rule, but the service is not going to give you any treatment. It's not going to let you in if you are not wearing the face mask. So people can't get services without a face mask. We also use have to for necessity, when something is important and we think that it is important. So I have to study for my exam. I have to clean my house. I have to travel to visit my parents. So have to indicates something that is important. And we need to conjugate have with the subject. So we say, I have to, you have to, she has to, he has to. Careful with that one because have we need to conjugate. For the other ones, can, must, we don't need to conjugate. You can check the examples. Anna, we don't conjugate. Teachers, we don't conjugate. Now, don't have to. It's the opposite of have to, right? Something that is not necessary or could be optional. We can use don't have to when we also talk about rules, but that it's not necessary, something that is not a rule, or it's not important. Think about our class. Remember that for our class, you don't have to buy the workbook. We are not using the workbook, so it's not necessary. You don't have to connect every day for English class. We have special days, so you don't have to. It's It could be optional, but it's not necessary. We don't have to do it, right? So we use that for things that are not extremely important, right? And the last one, should. We know that should is for suggestions. You should connect to your online practice sessions. So it's a suggestion. If you want to improve and be better, you should. So think about those words that we use for different aspects: permission, ability, obligation. And that's exactly what you are going to be practicing in your book for the second part of the lesson. Remember, guys, if you don't understand or if you have questions about any word, any part, any activity, when we connect, feel free to ask and we can clarify all those problems that you have. Let's continue practicing. And again, thank you very much for your attention.